Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello. For the next half hour, we are going to be talking about cougars, protecting them, and being responsible pet owners with my guest, Korinna Domingo. She is a wildlife biologist who has worked on various wildlife projects with species such as black bears, mountain lions, porcupines, river otters, and Roosevelt elk. But she is most committed to the cougars and has founded and is director of the Cougar Conservancy. She has also led efforts with others to list the southern and central coast mountain lions under the California Endangered Species Act, a joint initiative of the Center for Biological Diversity and the Mountain Lion Foundation. She formerly worked with the National Wildlife Federation and served as their director of conservation programs for the California region. And she is a supporter of the Save LA Cougars campaign, an initiative to build the world's largest wildlife crossing. She has been honored by California Senator Anthony Portantino for her dedication in educating the community about living with mountain lions. She is co-author of the free e-book Common Questions in Cougar Coexistence and is also producer of the Cougar Coexistence video series. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Like you, I love cats. Cougars are big ones here in California, in Southern California especially, but yet cougar isn't what we always call them. Apparently, according to the Guinness World Record book, there are over 84 names for cougars, the most names of any wildlife species. I think of them as mountain lions, pumas, panthers. What are some of the others?
There's catamount, klondike, ghost cat, mountain screamer, and what I think is really interesting when we talk about the names of mountain lions or the species that we're talking about is actually the scientific name is Puma concolor. So it's got all these different names and they're all regional. But the reason why that is because mountain lions, they're one of the largest terrestrial mammalian species in North America. And as a result, their home ranges and territories overlap with so many different indigenous cultures, all of which all have their own language and their own name for the mountain lion.
We find this species throughout North America, but also Central America and South America?
That's correct.
Yeah, it's an endangered species, particularly here in California. For many decades, people were getting awarded for killing them, but the laws have changed. They no longer can do that?
Yeah, so back in 1990, mountain lions were designated a specially protected mammal under Proposition 117. Fast forward to 2019, I was part of that team that petitioned for select subpopulations of cougars in California to be listed under the California Endangered Species Act. So not the federal ESA, but the state's Endangered Species Act. In 2020, those selected subpopulations living along Southern California and the Central Coast then became candidate species under CISA.
Cougars are considered an umbrella species. What is that?
Yes, I love this question. So mountain lions, when we talk about the Cougar Conservancy, we're not just here to talk about cougars, right? So cougars are an umbrella species, meaning that conserving mountain lions helps support entire ecosystems. For example, kills made by predators like mountain lions attract diverse crowds of scavengers, including mammals, birds, and insects. And we don't really fully understand all of the different ways that cougars may affect deer, which is their main prey species here in Southern California, or other small carnivores like coyotes, bobcats, and raccoons. But given that cougars are the only apex predator here in Southern California, losing them in whatever roles they may play is not an experiment we want to conduct. And then additionally, I just want to throw in there, as we're talking about an umbrella species and apex predators, cougars are the only large carnivore in many parts of Southern California. They are the main predator on the area's dominant herbivore, the mule deer. So when you see deer in SoCal, you're looking at the mule deer species. species. Many parts of Los Angeles and Southern California also have black bears, which are considered a large carnivore based on size, but black bears are omnivorous and they're not regular predators on deer, meaning cougars are the apex predator. They're often the only apex predator in SoCal. So they're the top of the food chain and they have no natural predators.
Because they are a predator and they do eat meat, people are afraid of them. And that means that when we're out in the natural areas, in our parks and our wilderness, and we're hiking and we encounter them, we have to know what to do. What do I do when I see one?
Well, you don't want to run. You want to face the animal, stay together, don't turn your back, don't crouch down, pick up small children. If you're hiking with your pet, pick up small dogs. And if your dog's too large to pick up, bring them as close as possible to you and hold them firmly on a leash beside you. You want to give the cougar an escape route, make yourself look big, make noise. You can do that using an air horn. If you feel like the cougar continues to show interest, you can throw objects. And of course, if you feel as though an attack is imminent, deploy bear spray and fight back in the extremely rare case that a cougar does attack. When we're talking about mountain lion attacks on people are extraordinarily rare. And of course, the statistics that do exist are real people and their lived experiences should never be minimized. However, we do know that cougars try to avoid us whenever possible. There was even a study that came out a few years ago that shows that mountain lions actually are afraid of human voices. And then there's also things that we can do at home to help reduce risk. You mentioned carnivores and the fact that mountain lions eat meat. So cougars are opportunistic hunters. Like you were just saying, they're predators, they're carnivores, but they will take advantage of whatever opportunities arise to take down and consume prey. And so this means that depredation, say on domestic animals, when a mountain lion goes after, say, your pet dog in your backyard, for example, that means that those incidents can happen despite mountain lions having access to natural prey. Improperly housed, vulnerable, and inexperienced domestic animal like your dog or cat can represent a really easy meal that saves a cougar a lot of time and energy and perceived risk, right? It's hard going after mule deer with their antlers or their second favorite food are coyotes. That does come with a lot of risk. We know that mountain lions don't prefer domestic animals necessarily, but again, they will prey on unprotected animals if given the opportunity, which is why there can be conflict between mountain lions, our pets, and people.
That is an important reason that people keep their domesticated cats indoors, that they watch their dogs or have them in fenced areas that the cougars can't get into because there are so many homes next to the wild areas where cougars live.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who know how to coexist with our local mountain lions and local coyotes and black bears. We're already coexisting in so many regions. However, as an organization that is dealing with human-wildlife conflict on a day-to-day basis, we actually speak more so to the people who are not currently protecting their animals through things like cougar-proof enclosures or supervising pets while outdoors. And so that's a lot of the Cougar Conservancy's conflict response and coexistence support is connecting with residents and recreationists throughout the state of California and throughout the Cougars range to provide them with the tools they need to coexist at home and on the trail.
I want to go back to one of my original questions, and that is not only do cougars have multiple names depending on the culture and the tradition, but cougars are a cat. What do they really look like? Because apparently some people report to you that they've seen one when it's really a bobcat, slightly larger animal than a domestic cat, but definitely smaller than a mountain lion.
Yes. So a lot of our work is actually helping people to identify whether or not they actually saw a mountain lion or not. Cougars are uniformly beige, and they have a cream-colored belly and dark markings on both sides of their muzzle. I like to call that their mustache. The back tip of their ears and the tip of their tail are black. As kittens, cougars are spotted, and they have rounder ears and these long, thick tails and blue eyes when they're small. Adult cougars in California tend to weigh between anywhere from 70 to 150 pounds. But like you said, cougars and bobcats and house cats, they all belong to the family Felidae. So they are all cats, so people are in the right category when they're trying to identify whether or not it's a bobcat or a mountain lion. But of course, like I just mentioned, they do vary considerably considerably in size and appearance. So cougars are the largest felid in California, and then bobcats, they only actually weigh anywhere between 12 to 25 pounds on average. And of course, domestic cats are even shorter and smaller, most of the time than bobcats.
Mountain lions are in the cat family, but how do they compare to the big cats that we so often see in Africa, the tigers, the cheetahs, the lions?
Yes, I love this question. So when we talk about cougars as a big cat, we're kind of saying that colloquially based on size in the U.S. Technically, the mountain lion is the largest cat of the small cat family. The big cat family, like African lions and so forth, are actually part of the genus Panthera. And so a big distinction with these two groups is you can kind of separate them into cats that roar and cats that don't roar. So cats that roar, like the African lion, have something called a hyoid, which allows them to make that amazing reverberation. Whereas something like a mountain lion, they don't have a hyoid bone and they cannot roar. So they purr, they chirp, and they make a bunch of other different really cool vocalizations.
Do you have a recording of what a mountain lion sounds like?
Absolutely, I do. Let me play that for you right now. So this is Nikita, a female lion that used to live in the Verdugo Mountains.
Lovely sound. I always maintain that when I'm hiking, I think that the mountain lion is looking at me, but I can't see it. It rather wants to avoid me, but they're out there. They don't really want an encounter that is going to be dangerous to them. But I also know that when I did a documentary on mountain lions decades ago, the scientists who had been studying mountain lions for 7 years said he had only seen the mountain lions 7 times. They were doing it by radio collar because they are secretive and rather solo animals.
Yeah, I mean, they're not called ghost cats for no reason. And I think what's fun for us to point to when people talk about how sort of elusive mountain lions or cougars are, whatever you want to call them, is we can kind of rewind back to the Pleistocene or the last ice age. And mountain lions in Southern California used to share the landscape with other mega cats on the landscape, like the American lion, the scimitar cat, an extinct subspecies of the jaguar, just to name a few. And we think, and it's hypothesized, that mountain lions were able to survive by sort of having a plastic or flexible diet. So that, again, going back to their nature of being opportunistic hunters, they weren't big specialists like the American lion who only preyed on certain types of animals. Secondly, we think they also survived because of their ability to navigate the landscape without encountering these other big cats, because if they directly encountered these other big species, it probably wouldn't end well for a mountain lion who was much smaller than these other cats they were sharing the landscape with. And so I think as a result, we can kind of look at the behavior today of mountain lions and say, oh, they had to kind of adapt and have this type of elusive behavior so that they could continue to survive and reproduce on the landscape with these other big cats.
Fascinating history that I think most people don't know about. We know that they have survived here in California, but they used to be across the entire United States, but they've become extinct in many states?
That's correct. So when European colonists came over to the eastern seaboard, they brought with them a lot of their doministic viewpoints of nature. And as a result, there was government-sanctioned bounties. In other words, our government paid people bounties to kill animals such as black bears, mountain lions, and also bounties on indigenous people. So you used to be able to bring the scalp of a mountain lion and the government paid you for that. And as a result, we only have mountain lions in 15 western states, along with a small remnant population in Florida, also known as the Florida panther. And technically, the Florida panther is a subspecies. The scientific name is Puma concolor. We think the reason why they were able to survive in Florida is because truly the swamplands of Florida are hard to access with dogs and hounds. And who eats hounds? Gators. So mountain lions were able to kind of hang on, and a small population still exists today in Florida, and they're actually listed under the Federal Endangered Species Act. Of course, mountain lions exist in the 15 western states as well as in California, which we've been talking a lot about today.
There's so much to know about mountain lions, and we're going to find out more about what is being done to protect them and how we can enjoy them and have them in our lives with my guest, Korinna Domingo, when we return in a moment.
Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman continues with further discussion of the world's critical ecological issues. For more information, you may call 310-559-9160 or go to www.ecoprojects.org. Now, here's Nancy.
I'm speaking with Korinna Domingo. She is a wildlife biologist and founder and director of the Cougar Conservancy. Mountain lions do need our help now because they are threatened by many actions of human beings moving into their habitat, but those homes that are near the parks and wilderness and wild areas, many of them put out rodenticides and other poisons that end up affecting mountain lions. How does that happen, that the rodenticides are affecting them, or even vehicle strikes?
Yes, there are so many different interconnected threats that cougars are facing. You mentioned a few of them: habitat loss and fragmentation, vehicle strikes, wildfire, environmental toxicants, and of course depredation and poaching incidents. For environmental toxicants specifically, these are a cause of mortality for the state's mountain lions, and many people are aware of the rat poison issue. Currently, we know that cougars in California are being exposed to anticoagulant rodenticides at alarming rates. We know that exposure can result in mortality and that population-level impacts are currently unknown. However, in an ongoing health and monitoring program led by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, they found that over 95% of mountain lions tested in California have been exposed to these rodenticides, with over 70% of those lions having 3 or more in their system. We also know with that study that we actually started to detect these rodenticides in mountain lion fetuses, a phenomenon that was previously detected in bobcats in Southern California. In the small isolated populations of SoCal, we know that multiple mountain lions tracked by the Santa Monica Mountains National Park Service study have died as a direct result of this rodenticide exposure. It happens in a lot of different ways, but the most common way that mountain lions are exposed to these poisons are a result of kind of the food chain, right? So someone puts out bait, rat poison bait, in the form of food bait for rodents, and that's the primary target. But then secondary poisoning occurs when, say, a coyote comes and eats that poison prey. And then who eats the coyote? The mountain lion. So that's called tertiary poisoning. And so we're seeing these rodenticides move through really all levels of the food chain. This can make them susceptible to other types of diseases and issues such as mange. So you may have seen P22 a few years ago, or P53 in the Santa Monica Mountains National Park Service study that exhibited signs of mange as a result likely of being exposed to these poisons. So they are a big problem, and it doesn't matter if you're in a rural county or a really populous county like Los Angeles County. We're seeing this type of exposure throughout the state of California, regardless of population size.
You mentioned the Florida subspecies, and it survived in an isolated area. So its gene pool got less diverse, and actually some biologists reintroduced some Texan mountain lions into that gene pool. We have the similar problem here in Southern California because our mountains, from the Santa Susanas or the Angeles National Forest to the Santa Monica Mountains, is divided by freeways. That means that populations are isolated. They need to intermix. You were very involved in an initiative to build the world's largest wildlife crossing, and that's along Liberty Canyon. Can you tell us what that really is going to do?
Absolutely, yeah. So like you stated, development and roads have turned these once well-connected areas of green space into islands that cougars and and other wildlife can rarely escape. And like you said, that makes it more likely for them to mate with close relatives, which is also known as inbreeding. Where our California cougar subpopulations may be headed without restoring connectivity in the Southern California region are things like that we started to see with the Florida panther. We started to see things like the atrial septal defect, which is kind of a hole in the heart. We started to see kinked tails and non-descended testes, malformed sperm, cowlicks, and twisted spleens, along with kinked tails. Of course, some of those defects may only be cosmetic, like a kinked tail, while others actually may impact the individual's ability to survive and reproduce successfully, such as a sperm not being able to swim and meet the egg during reproduction. And like you stated, cougars in the Santa Anas and Santa Monica Mountains, we started to see these physical abnormalities as a result of genetic inbreeding. And so we're seeing things like kinked tails in both subpopulations now. A study conducted a few years ago actually found that cougars will likely go extinct in the next 50 years if nothing is done to improve habitat connectivity in these two regions. And so the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing is one of the solutions for the Santa Monica mountain lion subpopulation. What that's going to do is it's going to connect mountain lions living in the Santa Monica Mountains to the Simi Hills with the goal of connecting to the Los Padres National Forest, which is the nearest source population for mountain lions. So that'll allow mountain lions from the north to go south and breed with the Santa Monica lions, and the Santa Monica lions can go north and reproduce with some new folks up in the Los Padres National Forest. That gene flow is super important, and the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing is not only going to positively impact things like mountain lions, but the scientists studying wildlife there with the National Park Service have even seen genetic differentiation with things like songbirds who don't have the capability of flying over the 101 freeway, which it is a giant freeway if you haven't seen it in person. So it's going to impact and positively impact a lot of different species in the area.
Nature also impacts the wildlife, particularly as we know in Southern California with the recent wildfires, but we have droughts. These situations affect the wildlife. Mountain lions can have their paws burned. They need water during the drought. It's so important that humans keep a watch out for these animals, and they report these injured animals or dead animals so that they can be taken care of and healed. In your free ebook, Common Questions in Cougar Coexistence, which you co-authored, it has wonderful resources. It's an easy book. It's not one that you just have to read and read and read. You can look at the chapter titles and decide if you want to learn about trail safety or home safety or how to help. But you have websites, you have phone numbers, you have email addresses, you have so much valuable information. How do they get a copy of that?
Yes, so if you are curious and want to dive into our book, Common Questions in Cougar Coexistence, you can purchase a copy at SaveLACougars.org, and proceeds do go towards the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing Project. That book was funded by the National Wildlife Federation, so shout out to them for funding this amazing project that we've worked on together. And then if you want to download a free ebook, you can also go to our website and download the ebook for free at CougarConservancy.org. That's CougarConservancy.org.
And they can call you at a free 800 number?
You can also reach out to the Cougar Conservancy anytime with coexistence questions or to get access to some of our free resources at 1-800-930-1087.
You have worked with many different organizations, and you have worked in collaborations with many different experts. So why have your own organization?
The Cougar Conservancy is here to really tackle a specific conservation issue which really wasn't being addressed holistically prior to the founding of the organization in 2020. We're here to help provide coexistence support to prevent the killings or retaliatory killings of mountain lions after depredation events. So we focus very specifically in preventing conflict at home and on the trail with domestic animals. And as a result, we're here also conserving cougars and other wildlife as part of that work.
You have worked in trying to protect many different wildlife species, from black bears to porcupines, river otters, Roosevelt elk. These are very different kinds of animals. Why have you focused so much on cougars?
Well, I think that we use cougars as a sort of flagship species. So to me, mountain lions represent a specific cause to underscore the importance of coexistence between humans and all wildlife communities. For me, it's not just about mountain lions. They're just my vehicle to be able to share this information with the public.
Very important that we do our part to be sure that mountain lions exist. Are there any kinds of numbers? How many we have left in California? How many there once were?
Yeah, so that's a question that we get all of the time. And actually, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and other researchers in the state of California have been undergoing a statewide estimate. That paper is currently under peer review at the moment, and that should be out hopefully soon for folks to be able to read. The 1980s estimates showed that we have anywhere between 4,000 to 6,000 mountain lions throughout the state of California. However, that was sort of a napkin calculation, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife currently acknowledged that that older estimate is likely an overestimate of current mountain lion populations today.
You are an advocate for pet owners to be responsible, for homeowners to be responsible to protect themselves as well as to protect the wildlife, trail safety. These are all concerns of you. You want to prevent conflicts with cougars so that we can all coexist. Any last-minute suggestions?
No, I would just say thank you so much for having me on, Nancy. And like you said, our website has such robust free coexistence resources. So if you want to learn more about trail safety or how to reduce risk at home, everything from cougar-proof enclosures to landscaping practices that prevent conflict, you can reach out to us anytime. And you can also, if you have questions about coexisting with bears, you can consult the bearwise.org website.
By going to the website, the ebook, or your cougar coexistence video series, they can see beautiful pictures of the mountain lion. Beautiful animal. You did some of those photographs?
I love how you mentioned the photos that we have on our website and in our communications, because as we were talking about, mountain lions are so elusive, and we also want to be able to utilize visual media like photographs and videos that are ethically sourced. And so we have the distinct privilege of being able to work with so many incredible conservation photographers such as Joanna Turner, Cougar Magic, Jason Glassy, Colin Ecker, Eric J., Robert Martinez, and so many more local photographers that lend us their photos so that we can do the work that we do to help communities coexist. You can tell folks all you want about the data and what to do and how to stay safe, but unless you have these tools for storytelling, a lot of that doesn't connect with the public. And so, yes, a lot of the photos on our website were taken here in Southern California, and we're so appreciative to all of our photographers for their contributions. We couldn't do it without them.
I appreciate your contribution to the conservation efforts of cougars and to informing the public about these beautiful animals, how we can coexist with them. I want to thank you so very much for your activism, for your work in educating the public, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Nancy.
I have been speaking with Korinna Domingo, who is a wildlife biologist and founder and director of the Cougar Conservancy. I'm Nancy Pearlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Pearlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.